Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Your magical kiss take me just so far. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Don't leave me like this, dangling from a star. Set me all aflame and it's so pleasing. It sure would be a shame if you were only teasing. So my love, before I go, turn the lights way down low and talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me. Well, hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Don McKeag Show. And before we go any further, let's say Happy Easter. It is a foundation of the Christian religion, and it is an important time for many of the Christian faith in the United States of America. And remember, we are a nation that was founded on, grew upon, and developed under the basic beliefs of Christianity. Other religions came, but this country was founded and became the greatest country on earth so far because of its fundamental belief in the Christian theology and in Jesus Christ. Sunday, Easter Sunday, celebrates the rising of Christ, celebrates the story of his crucifixion. I want to impress that upon you because there are those in today's United States that do everything in their power to minimize that knowledge and to minimize the importance that that day meant to the United States and still does to many. I also, we do a radio show, as you know, that our regular listeners down in Barnstable, Hyannis, on station WXTK. It's 95.1 on your dial, Saturdays from 11 to 1. And I do some of the same things. We have Plymouth listeners and Plymouth callers. But my goal here is to try very hard to keep reminding all of us, Democrats, Republicans, independents, of certain things that I believe are not only under the gun and trying to be erased, but certainly they're trying to be minimized, and our young people are not getting the true scoop because of this idea of fairness. We're not supposed to have any majority, I guess, beliefs in anything, according to the powers that be too often. As I do, I mentioned on my radio show, I want to start this off because I think that this is very, again, a lot of these poems, a lot of books, come from a religious story or a religious doctrine, as in Jesus Christ. They grow out of the 10 Commandments. They grow, the stories that are told, the most famous stories are told, are based on the 7 deadly sins. We have stories about greed, we have stories about envy, we have stories about lust, we have stories about sloth. And that's why they should be used in schools, but they're not. In this poem by Rudyard Kipling, my favorite poet, who lived and wrote this in 1910, actually. It's called If, as I mentioned. And I'd like to just start the show off with this. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all other men doubt you, but make an allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired of waiting, or being lied about nor deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good or seem too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you've given your life to broken and stoop and build them back up again with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one toss of pitch and toss, and lose, then start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can walk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And what's more important, you'll be a man, my son. That's if. There is so much in that poem, written 105 years ago, and just as relevant today as it was then. Again, I wonder how often the classroom brings this kind of knowledge into it. If, the poem is if. And the big thing is that so many don't get this. The lines I've always loved and used, again, is if you can think and not make thought your aim, and if you can meet with triumph and disaster, yet treat those two impostors just the same. In this culture today, parents today have really changed from parents that I had and my generation had. Parents today tend to take everything their children do as a personal thing, either an affront if they do poorly, or as a blessing and reason for gloat if they do well. Big mistake. I don't know about your parents, Kenny, but my parents and that generation, the kids, what they did were not considered extensions of the parents all the time. They were to stand on their own 2 feet. If they fell down, your parents picked you up, dusted you off, said, that's all right, that's just life. Remember that old expression, Kenny? You can't win them all. And we have the expression, a sore loser, but it's misinterpreted lots of times. You're not supposed to be happy when you lose, or what's the sense in participating? But there again, this is what we've got the liberal feel-good, do-gooders now in schools. It's been going on far too long. That is that everyone has to play. Everyone should be able to have a chance to score a goal or hit a home run, even if they're not physically capable of it. And of course, everyone has to get a trophy, whether they ever won one game or did one thing themselves. It is not only insane, but it is so counterproductive for the young person. As a teacher, in our day when we went to school, and then schools were run when I was teaching, you used the track system. And the track system tried to put children, students of close to, not equal, but close to the same ability, so that they could all actually participate with one another, while at the same time grow and separate even in that class. Even the brilliant kids, thank you very much, even the brilliant kids, there were some that were better than others. I've known very bright kids that were devastated if they didn't get an A, all A's. Devastated, not disappointed. Disappointing and disappointment is a normal thing. Otherwise, why do we strive? If you're doing something and it doesn't work out, I mean, you're not supposed to be brokenhearted. No, that's it. You treat those two imposters just the same, victory and defeat. And that's because we're human beings, and the balanced human being is able to know that it's only a brief moment. Anyway, even when you win, it's just a life experience. It's not the measure of you. At that time it is, if you've done something great. If you've won a game, or you've won a medal, or you're in gymnastics and you win your particular area of endeavor, but it's over. That's why so many of these professional athletes today have problems when they stop playing. They can't handle not being idolized and paid so ridiculously. And now when they have to face the real world, they can't. They turn to drugs, or they turn to alcohol, and the marriage falls apart. And they even have mental problems. We all hear about the NFL talking about the physical problems. But the psychological problems, I contend, are every bit, if not more, damaging. There are jails filled with people that were athletes or some other that had made millions and then couldn't stand not having the idolatry of everyone, and that is a mistake of society in general. People are cruel anyway. People are jealous. That's why I keep talking about the 7 deadly sins on both these shows, the radio and here. I want to keep reminding myself, as well as you, that you can then remind your kids. We all have life experiences, positive and negative. But that's not how you measure an entire life. You measure how you get up when you're defeated in something, when you lose, when you fail a test. How do you handle it? Do you treat it as a devastating, permanent injury? Or do you treat it the same as if you got an all-A report card? That's the wisdom. That's the genius of Rudyard Kipling. We are a call-in show, Kenny. We have the phone number up there now. By the way, as I say, it's Easter, and I hope that we will see a celebration of it, and not a situation whereby, I don't know how schools today handle Easter, but I talked at the library today, and I talked to some people at the library, and I'm tough on education. I just think education needs a huge overhaul, and especially in scheduling. And my understanding is that the kids are off tomorrow. Now, Easter is Sunday. That's what it is. Why we have to have the kids off, especially after all this winter of missing school, why they can't be going on Friday is, again, typical of government employee mentalities today. I don't know how many. Kenny, are you there? Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're on the phone. I just wondering what other government employees have long weekend on Easter and why? We had Ash Wednesday. That's passed. Is there some reason we can't go and the kids can't go to school and maybe make up one of the days that they're going to have to make up in June or whatever else? But more than that, we have too many interruptions of our educational process. And that is something that, again, it's too political. And the educators get away with murder, as far as my particular opinion is. And one of the things I wanted to also talk about that's back into the reality of this Obama administration mentality, I just thought you might be interested. Now, this is 3 years old. I keep files. And it's amazing how the things that all of a sudden are put out there crop up later on. And it's not incredible to me because, again, the media is out of control. And, of course, they are so politically biased that nothing ever sticks that's negative toward the thinking of the politicians in this country. Listen to this, how they vote in the United Nations. Now, you know how much money we give to the Arab state. Kuwait votes against the United States 67% of the time. Morocco votes against the United States 71% of the time. United Arab Emirates, I should say, that's emirs, that's the royalty. They vote against the United States 70% of the time. Jordan votes against the U.S. 71% of the time. Tunisia votes against the United States 71% of the time. Saudi Arabia votes against the United States 73% of the time. This, by the way, was in October of 2012, almost 3 years ago. How much money do we give to Saudi Arabia and to the countries I just mentioned? And does anyone remember the name Saddam Hussein? Does anyone remember who he wanted to defeat and rule over? One of which was Saudi Arabia, the Saudis. We saved the Saudi kingdom, per se. By the way, that family's very close to George Bush Sr. and Jr. So this isn't me on the Democrats again. This is me on the politicians, period. Yemen votes against the United States 74% of the time. 3 out of 4 votes are against us. And we've got people, by the way, in the press that feel, well, I don't blame them. These are Americans on our screen making, $500,000 a year reading notes, and they're big shots. They're on television and they've got estates here and there. They've got, their kids are in the most private elite schools, and yet they side with how these countries that we have to go into the United Nations. And they think, of course, that we, the United States, deserve to have a lot of these countries vote against us. They live in the United States, though. They don't move to Yemen. They don't move to Saudi Arabia. They don't move to Morocco. Isn't that interesting? We deserve to have another country that we finance. We deserve that to have them vote against us because, after all, we're nothing more than empire builders. It's just crazy. Yes, Kenny. Are you back now? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But.
No, you never interrupt me. I was in the middle of something.
Well, I put you in the middle of something coming in here so late.
You did. You know, you're going to have to start paying for my heart medication.
But we bailed out.
You bailed out. They had the finger on the button to go to rerun, Donnie.
Rerun. Well,
Rerun.
some people might have hoped for that.
Well,
but I was saying, getting back to the fact that now the Plymouth kids have tomorrow off too. I believe
yes,
so.
I believe they do.
Now, what about state workers and all? Do they all have Friday off too?
Well, I don't know if the new administration is giving them all the day off. I think they have to.
Well, my point is they shouldn't be.
I have a friend of mine.
This is not called for a 3-day weekend.
I have a friend who works
with pay.
DOT, Mass DOT, and he's accrued enough time that he is taking Fridays off from now until the summertime.
Those sick days, are they?
They are either I believe they're his accrued vacation time.
Yeah.
And he was told he's got to use them or lose them. So
well, that's a little bit different.
He's taking tomorrow off, but it's a paid day off, but it's a day that's due him.
Yeah. But now let me talk about that. Someone who has legitimate vacation time that they never used, that's on the books as that would have been paid for anyway.
Correct.
But this is different. I'm just saying, you hear me enough to know there is such a fiscal irresponsibility in government workers now that it's just tiring. And it is now, again, an absolute refusal to look at the apparent, very apparent financial distress this state and this country is under because of a lot of it. You cannot now have, I keep pounding away, ladies and gentlemen, I don't resent any, I was a teacher. I'm not against, but when I taught school, we were paid low, yes, but we also got benefits. That was the idea of these benefits that are now entitlements. Do you understand, any of you? And if I offend people, good. If I offend people that are on the government that are making more money than the same job out in the private sector and 4 times the benefits and the time off and the insurance, tough. It's breaking the bank in this country. I've said it before. We are non-funded in pensions for government workers right now. Many of the pensions are unfunded, not even underfunded. They're unfunded. Why? Because the money that's going out is so much more than what's coming in. That's like you people with your families. The father gets cut back on hours like so many have been. The dentist, the doctor. If you don't think that some of those professional people out there have lost a lot of money this winter in scheduling? Yeah, people reschedule an appointment. Many of them never do because you can't reclaim those days. When restaurants or retail stores are closed during heavy snows, maybe the people come back, but you've lost those revenue days. When all of these people, whether they be teacher and are home, being paid for every snowstorm or every interruption, it drains the financial balance. Simple as that. And it's also capital expenditures, building new buildings, over-the-top construction so you can brag about it, and ooh and ah about a school. And then at the same time, a teachers' unions get raises for the employees. That is unheard of until today's Democrat-controlled America. I know people say, I know we will have some people that are like me, they're on Social Security. This isn't a Democrat thing. This is both Democrats and Republicans. I mentioned last week, both our senators and many, although the Republicans stuck, both our senators voted against voted for lowering the pensions for our military. Elizabeth Warren and Markey, both of them. Doesn't that make you feel nice? But they'll vote to increase the benefits to illegals that are coming into this country. They want them to be able to vote. But our young people, young men and women that are in foreign ports or living in this country in Army facilities, their pensions are supposed to be cut back. That's Democrats. Now you tell me how you get away with that, Democrats, and you people that just have a D on your forehead. Tell me how you get away with that. They're already paid less. Well, Social Security. How's this one? Now the Social Security check, you know this, Kenny, is referred to as a federal benefit payment. That is not. You look at your check every week, you people in your 40s or 50s, if anybody's interested enough to listen to somebody who knows what he's talking about, because I've lived it. Unlike somebody your own age that hasn't done a damn thing except pontificate. It is not a federal benefit payment when you get your Social Security. Social Security is a contributory pension that we deserve, those of us that have put all that money in. And it's supposed to have been making money on the stock market that does what other pensions do. That's how it's able to sustain the drain on Social Security. It did just fine until Lyndon Johnson in the Vietnam War, which was a disgrace, and the country's coverage, the media's coverage was even worse when they belittled fighting men and women and got away with it. And I believe that was the seed of this attitude now and this sitting president. He's of the age that would have gone through all that hippiesville where they were burning flags and all of that nonsense. Now they have their own kids. So Lyndon Johnson decides that he is now going to borrow from the Social Security. It was a no-no. You could not. It was totally away from government spending because of what it is. Now again, think of this. How would you like it if your savings, all of a sudden the government said, and this, by the way, don't be thinking this isn't possible. The government gets in trouble, as they are already. They're just printing paper money that isn't worth anything. How would you like it if all of a sudden they said, you Democrats, how would you like it if all of a sudden they said, well, now we're going to go into your pension, we're going to start using it for highway construction or, never mind a war. We don't have the money to fill all the potholes. We're going to start taking it out of your pension. I know what would happen. You selfish, self-centered people today in America, you'd be screaming. But if it's somebody else, it's perfectly okay. Oh, we got to do that. Well, Lyndon Johnson was supposed to put the money back, and they were never supposed, it was supposed to be, and that's how Congress voted it. It was a temporary use of funds from Social Security. Do you think that's ever stopped? No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. And that's why you see people, foreigners, people who haven't been in the country a year, and somehow they're down there at the Social Security office. For a while there were alcoholics and druggies and all that were able to get a Social Security check, were able to live in housing that was supposed to be for the elderly only. Just disgraceful, political disgrace. Well, here, let's look at Social Security that's now called a federal benefit payment. See that? Now, guess who, Kenny, who do you suppose, what party do you suppose gets credit now that we changed the name to federal benefit? Which party do you suppose the nitwit voting population thinks is responsible for the Social Security check they get now. People even our age.
Democrats?
Would you say, bingo? The Republicans would never take care of people. They hate people.
Well, that's what people want everybody to
Oh,
believe.
the Democrats, if it's a federal benefit program, we got to have Democrats in there because they'll run it right. That's why we have food stamps that went up 800% in 5 years when either Clinton, I forget what Democrat went in there. And just remember, you do-gooders out there, the social services are self-perpetuating because the more they give money out, the more help they need to do it. So that's how they keep hiring government. We're so busy. Of course they're busy.
But it also gets them votes.
Well, of course it does. And of course they get a raise. They're irresponsibly handing the money out, and then they get a raise. Like I said, that the MBTA, can you imagine, as a restaurateur, it came out, this is probably 10 years ago now, that they were losing money on the concessions. Now, Kenny, they were losing, they've always lost money in the concessions, and there's no an outrage about it. Now, if you and I had the only coffee shop in Plymouth, you suppose we not be able to make a buck?
Of course we'd.
Well, that's what the MB, they have no competition on those trains.
So they're not making any
No,
money.
never
at the
mind that. They
Kingston
did.
station?
This again was when I was doing the morning radio show. I could not believe it. And we could not get anybody, by the way, to come on the radio and see why, Now, there were people with their fingers in the till. Do you know how many government workers ride the MBTA for nothing?
I would say all of them.
But Joe and Ruth Normal that are working for an insurance company or something, they got to pay.
Well, Donnie, I realized a long, long time ago when I first joined the Seasoned Citizen.
The seasoned citizens, yes.
When I first joined them in 2008, I said to myself that I guess I'm going to live my life different because I'm not going to make enough money on Social Security. 2008, the economy went where in a handbasket.
Of course it did.
So all of my stuff that was with Fidelity got lost, and they were going to take care of me. They were going to watch my retirement money. So what I have learned since I retired in 2008 is you still have to have a job. You can't not have something to bring money in, because if you're counting on the money that you've put into Social Security to bring you through your retirement, you might as well go in and just apply for welfare. But then again, you won't get welfare because you're getting Social Security.
Of course. It's like the Massachusetts parents who struggle to save money all their work in life so that when their children are graduating from high school, they can at least help them pay for college. And they're told that their kids, they don't get scholarships from my alma mater, UMass or anything, just the average student like I was.
Right.
Because their parents made too much money. But parents who've done zero, nada, their kids get scholarships. That's liberalism. That's the feel-gooders, the do-gooders, and it's absolutely wrong. But it is called socialism. Democratic Party is a socialist party by every definition. And they're doing right now exactly what every socialist country has done, and that is winning over people who are getting something for nothing. Hitler did it.
They're an easy enough people to win
The
over.
Romans did it.
Easy enough to win them over.
Well, no, because that's why, I keep talking about the 7 deadly sins that are in all of us.
Yes.
Greed, sloth, lust, envy.
I wish somebody would
All
try
of 'em.
and win me over.
Well,
It's
we've all, you know, my mother, I in my book, by the way, the book is, I know that people are clamoring for it.
I've got a list as long as my arm, and people that want to buy the book. They're
No,
not
I know
looking
that.
for
Well,
it
they're
for
going to have
free.
to. I'm not giving it away. I've worked too hard.
Oh crap! I was hoping that I'd get one for nothing.
I'll sign yours, okay? Yeah, yeah.
but I mean, there's a whole
Can you
chapter
imagine?
of-
I'm not holding my breath, believe me, on it being a bestseller.
There's a whole chapter just about me.
Yeah, there is. That's
Yes,
true.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, why I brought that up was in the book, and I've said this before. I owe my mother. We all owe. Most of us owe our mothers and fathers, but
Yes, we do.
we don't know it at the time. Sometimes, right?
We don't understand
know
why
their
they do
wisdom.
what they
This is
do.
again why you hear me on this show and others. My frustration. I'm not angry. I don't dislike anyone until they hurt others willfully, financially or otherwise, then you've got problems, and I make no apologies for that. But I don't dislike liberals, and I don't dislike anyone until, as I just said, they start either disrespecting my opinion based on my experiences, by the way, not based on reading some socialist foreigner. But my mother, I can remember in high school when I'd have a disappointment. Now, this goes back to why perhaps if that poem I read means so much to me. If I lost a ball game or if something didn't work out right, you know, I'd come home and, you know, my mother I'd be moaning about something and she'd say, Donald, remember, God blesses the effort, not necessarily the results. That is, in a nutshell, Kenny, I believe, what's really wrong in this country now. And again, it goes to that treating victory and defeat, treat those two imposters just the same. We've allowed this hand-wringing feelings flock, I call them, control the decision-making. It doesn't mean they're bad people. They are just really misdirected. And for whatever reason, whether their life was tragic or whether things didn't, but there's so much wisdom in the understanding that the effort is where the gain is. The results, as I said earlier about athletics, they're temporary for the best,
That's
no
correct.
matter who.
Correct.
And how you handle them, how you handle, you know, the idolatry, if that's the case, or the fame, is the measure of how you're going to live the rest of your life. And some just don't because they don't ever get that. To them, it has, and that's what we have our young people now. If they don't have everything that they want, and they want it now, they're in a big funk. And instead of the parents today saying, well, wait a minute, hold on, life isn't fair, things aren't going to be worked out, but remember, think of the effort that you made. See, those are the healthy kids, the ones who have parents that do that.
Right.
Kyle Frymouth was on here, you know, with me.
Yes.
He and I coached together. He did a terrific job with kids. He taught gym, but then he coached and taught phys ed, I should say. But we used to have a lot of fun with the kids, but there was no mamby-pamby in them, you know. They get knocked down, you get up, you know, and keep getting up. That's the way life is. You know, get knocked down by whatever, by a marriage, by a job, by an athletic, or by a piano recital, you get back up. Try again. You
think
don't
that
whine and moan and have the parents find fault with the coach or find fault with the teacher or the piano teacher or the art teacher. But that's today. Today it's that insecurity, I think, in the adults today with kids. I feel bad for so many kids who have that kind of a family life.
There was a lot of things that you've just made me remember. because going back to my bringing up in the city of Boston, we had a lot of Irish neighbors.
Yes.
We had a great mix in our neighborhood also.
Well,
We
America
had-
in those days was a much different kind of an attitude.
It was a great mix. And I've heard many a time, and you reminded me of it by stating it. It's not so much, it's not whether you win it, it's not whether you complete it, it's the effort. And the lady next door used to say that to me all the time, and it was always like she would call me up, or she'd yell across the hallway, and Kenny, can you go to the store? So
Yeah.
I go to the store, and I come back, and it was a big deal to me because I always got a reward, and she'd give me 5 cents for going to the store, but I'd come back with her list, and on the list just didn't have what she wanted. And
Yeah.
she used to say that to me all the time. It's the effort. You
Yep.
tried to get it for me. It's the effort. Here's your nickel.
Yep. Well, see?
And, it did a lot for me as a young boy to realize that, you have to try hard at anything you do, and you have to be satisfied with the result.
Well, you don't. You don't have to be satisfied.
Well, you should.
You
be
have to
satisfied.
accept it. No. Now that I will just. It may be splitting hairs, but
Probably.
I used to tell the kids, no, you don't have to be satisfied if you're lost, but you accept it at that time, and then say, how can I do better or
What can
whatever.
you do to change it? That's
yeah.
right.
And that's where, again, they twisted this sore loser idea, and that is that if somebody wasn't going over and crossing the field and glad-handing the team that just beat them, then they were sore losers. That's not so. I used to tell my kids, hey, I don't want to see you running over to the field after that team just beat us. I don't want to see any evidence of poor sportsmanship. I don't want to see anybody yelling things at them, but I want you to sit and digest the fact you got beat and how you play, and then later on maybe you get a chance if they're still around. Then you can talk to them. But,
Both of my grandchildren are involved in sports.
yes,
My granddaughter plays lacrosse. When they lose a game, they all line up
yep,
and they
and that's fine. That's
and they
correct.
shake hands.
And I like that. Yeah, that's not what I meant though.
My grandson
That's
plays
before
hockey,
we did that. Yeah,
and boy, does he play a great game of hockey. And you see him right after. If they've just lost a game, they're going through they're slapping hands together
yep,
because it builds something in their moral character to be able to say, well, look, you were better than I was. You beat me.
today.
But there is a
Today.
tomorrow.
That's correct. That's what I mean.
And,
Yep.
it
And that's the way this country, this is what I'm saying. We're not perfect, but we have too many people now that spend too much time on the mass and news demeaning our country. And some say, well, you demean the president. I said, yes, but I demean him for demeaning the country. There's a
Right.
difference.
there is a difference, yes.
When you've got a president that is so busy finding fault and making this a racist country, which it isn't, or he wouldn't be president. Now, are there racists? Of course there are. Are there black racists? Of course there are. Are there Oriental racists? Of course there are. Are there white racists? Of course there are. That gets back to the human being. And again, to be repetitive and redundant, that's why the 7 deadly sins remind us of it. Envy is many times a big part of racism. Calling people names. That's generally an indication of an insecurity in the person calling them the name. And these psychiatrists should know better than to jump on the bandwagon like they do. I don't care if it's Dr. Ruth or Dr. Phil or any of them. I mean, there's not enough, because there's too much money to be made by catering to, oh, you poor thing, oh, you've got to do this, and oh, I understand, oh, I feel bad for you, instead of saying, now, wait a minute, Let's look at this and look at how is this going to either benefit you or how is this going to hurt you in the future. No, we don't do that because, see, that's confronting it. We don't want to confront anymore today. It's just like I ran for state rep knowing I had very little chance. I ran as a Republican against a 12-year Democrat veteran whose father was with the Falmouth Enterprise newspaper for years, and Falmouth was one of the precincts, one of the whole areas. But I ran, and I ran on the principles and the knowledge I had, and I am proud to say I did it. And this is not boasting, but we don't have enough people, ladies and gentlemen, running for office today who have the real two. I call them the two most important qualifications. Positives. One, qualifications. Genuine. And wanting to do it is not a qualification. I know people who would love to be a lawyer, you liberal lawyers. How would you like it if somebody could just say, I'm going to hang a shingle up? Well, that's what they do with politicians. That's what they do. You know, a doctor, oh, I'd love to be a doctor. Oh, you would? Good. Well, go ahead. Why don't you take a few patients then? But that's what they do in politics. Here they're making huge decisions. They don't know anything about finance, basic finance.
Campaign finances.
Campaign, yeah.
Oh, God.
But anyway, I ran as I try to hope this people, and I don't care if it's Plymouth or Carver, whatever, run on the principles that you have, the knowledge you have, but most importantly, be willing to lose. Again, the effort is what is, that's why I did it. I remembered my mother. And I ran, and I get beat, and that's fine. I was disappointed, you bet your life. I worked 4 times as hard as my opponent did. I had Democrats working for me because there are Democrats up on Capitol Hill that would love to see more Republicans. People don't believe that, you know. But they know the crumb that's in that Democratic majority now where they don't have to work at anything. They've got a D next to their name and they're a shoo-in. And that's a pathetic thing to say. And a lot of them are Irish, and I'm Irish, and they really don't please me one bit. But you have people now, why should I run? I don't have a chance. And again, that's part of the left. The left wants to hammer down any genuine threat. That's what the media did to Mitt Romney. They hammered away at how much money he made. Look at them. This president, an $8 to $10 million home he's going to have in Hawaii, never ever owned a business, never did a darn thing on his own. Neither did the Clintons, and they're millionaires. But it's a Democrat, and it's okay. It's really sad. And so we rant along here. We're coming down, aren't we, Kenny? I wanted to finish, though, this Social Security, because I suspect there's people that... I saw a couple of people, by the way, at the library today that watched this show. So, hello. I want to say hi to them. Anyway, first of all, it says they call it a federal benefit payment, which is not. It is not. And the government's now referring to our Social Security checks as a federal benefit payment. This isn't a benefit, it's earned income. Not only did we all contribute to Social Security, but our employers did too. Another thing I mentioned about small business and about government employee salary increases that I'm going to keep pounding away at. Every time the teachers, the police, the firemen, you can all think they get a raise, it's fine. Okay? It's fine. But just remember, every bit of money that's withheld from their check for Social Security has to be matched by the town. And that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just know that. And then compound that with a capital expenditure of a new school. Now, the town of Carver's taxes are prohibitive. I love the town. I live there now, but they are prohibitive. And they've got something going against them. The big thing is so many acres of land are, and Plymouth has some, is cranberry bogs, which are considered farm acreage, and they can only be taxed or evaluated. I think it's 18.5 an acre.
Yes.
I have a half an acre little plot with my 3 little condos on it, and it's valued at $207,000.
That's because your name's McKeag.
Yeah,
we know
well,
you have money.
We have money. Well, it used to be.
It
But
wasn't
anyway,
you.
but what I'm just saying, Kenny, is Carver is going to be building a new school.
Yes, they are.
And they also need a new fire station, and they need a new police station. Now, they don't have a natural gas line. I have to have propane, which is 20% more than natural gas for heat. Imagine what this winter the bills were for everyone in South Carver. Now they have a natural gas up in North Carver, I guess. They don't have town water. They don't have town sewage, so everyone has to have a septic system. I had to put a $40,000 septic system in the condos, and because I'm near the water. Now this is all well and good for the inspectors and the conservation, and they're all getting a salary and they're getting their and that's fine. But they tell the person in business, yeah, but this is what you have to do.
That's right.
And your taxes are higher than some towns that give you rubbish pickup. They have natural gas, they have town sewage, and they have town water. Now, what's that worth? Now they're going to build all these buildings. Where are the taxes going to go in Carver? And how is anyone that's working in the private sector for a normal living, how are they going to pay their bills? Simple as that. How? The school's been turned down, not because evil people like me don't want a school, but because they are the taxpayers are aware of just what I said. They're saying to themselves, my God, our taxes are... Now, I got another question for all of you out there. I love to throw these out there because I want to stick a burr under the public sector's rear ends. Could anyone tell me why a superintendent or a police chief or a fire chief or anybody making the kind of money they now make, remember, this is 2, 3, 4 times what they made 20 years ago, or 3 times what they made. Why should they have a town vehicle anymore? Why should any town employee at the executive level have any kind of free gas, free transportation every month? Tell me that.
They negotiate it.
Of course, well, because everybody does it. Well, that was done, as I said it, in a benefit to make up for a salary that was less than the private sector because it kept the taxes down. Ladies and gentlemen, teachers, police officers, firemen that I respect very much, but it's called finance. It's called taxes going up and up and up. Yes, you're paying taxes, but you're also basically getting cost of living raises. And notice, by the way, how government now, thanks to the Democrats, Proposition 2.5 now, they override it all the time. It was meant to control this out-of-control spending in the public sector. Again, the only unions in the United States of America that are growing are public employee unions. Does that tell you anything? Why? Because there's no bottom line. The private sector, I don't care if it's General Motors, IBM, I don't care. I know lawyers, I know airline pilots whose pensions have been lowered because the money isn't there. Because the entity, the corporation or whatever, that Elizabeth Warren, by the way, loves to demean, corporate America. And I'll repeat it. Every one of you public employees, your pension's based on the health of the stock market, period. Which is another reason why socialism never works. Because the first thing they do is throw out the capitalistic style of living that provides the stock returns on investment. Why is it the teachers union invested in Mitt Romney's company? Notice how they poo-pooed that? He had millions of dollars. What was the name of that
Oh, yeah.
company?
Yes. Oh, God.
They
three
poo-pooed
names.
that. And every time somebody said, hey, wait a minute, there must be some reason that the teachers union would want to invest in venture capital or whatever. No, what was the name? Something like
It had
that.
like 2 or 3 names
Yeah.
to it.
They demeaned his money. How much? And that fool. By the way, how about the Harry Reid? You Democrats, I love it. He get beaten up. Simple as that. Of course, the media is just going over that. Never, Like the time Clinton was playing. Remember the time Clinton was playing golf with Norman, Greg Norman.
And he hung off a chandelier.
Yeah, and they were into the sauce, and he hurt his knee or something.
His knee,
And the press just, look, if that was a Republican, if that was George Bush, they'd have him drunk. They'd have him. He should be going into a rehab. He should be doing this. He should be doing that. It is just shameless, and I just pointed out, not thinking it'll ever change, because it won't. So we're getting near the end, are we, Kenny?
Yes, and I need to tell you that when the cameras shut off, I need you to stay there for a minute. I need to
I will
talk to
stay
you,
there.
Okay? So if you can get ready to wrap it up.
I'm going to wrap it up. But anyway, the last thing is, the Social Securities, you pay for it all the time. If you average $30,000 per year over your working life, you would have made $180,000 invested. If you calculate your future value of your monthly investment in Social Security, $375 a month, including yours and your employee contributions, even at 1% rate, after 40 years, you'd have $1.3 million. Just think of how the government has cheated you. Every one of us on Social Security that's contributed any kind of what is normally been taken out of Social Security that has then been doubled by the employer, whether it be town or, whether it be public or private, the return should be in the thousands. And let me tell you, it is for Elizabeth Warren from Harvard. Harvard has $60 billion, thereabouts, $60 billion in endowments, and they don't pay a full property tax. Nor does Yale or Princeton or BC or BU or the Catholic Church or the Episcopalian Church. But you and I pay a full tax rate. And when the private owners of apartment houses in Boston, when they have to raise the rent because these fools in the political establishment keep getting raises and raising taxes, they're demeaned in the press. They're demeaned. But they allow Kraft and John Henry to raise tickets all the time. Very little's ever said. Why? Because they need the revenue that they get from the advertising in the sports page. They are shameless, and they have to be because they lose their jobs. And it's McKeag once again spewing all sorts of words of wisdom that don't matter in today's America. It's all about getting something for nothing. And whoever's going to give you something for nothing, vote for them, right? Vote for them. Whoever's going to cheat you out of something, as long as they take care of you, vote for them. Don't make a change. Don't certainly vote for someone that is honest and cares about reversing this trend. Anyway, happy Easter on Sunday. God bless you. Thanks for listening to the rantings of Donald Parker McKeag, a former Weymouth resident. Great-grandparents lived and grandparents in Carver, Massachusetts, Braintree, Massachusetts, and Plymouth, Massachusetts. I remember old Silver Beach as a kid. I remember a lot of things. When you live old and long enough, you remember too darn much. Anyway, thanks again. I hope to hear from you. And remember, we're going to be rerun tomorrow and Wednesday and Sunday. And the town of Carver also shows this show at various times. Again, thanks very much.